One thing I was going to do, which I've just been told, that we've got 2 people participating in the Southern Hemisphere. So that's obviously a first for an AGM for us. So welcome to them. Anyway, now there'll be a short video from myself, and then we'll hand over to Emma, who will chair the rest of the informal meeting, but we'll obviously be around to answer questions, etc. So over to the video then, Rosie. I'd like to give you the board summary for the year 2021 up to the date of the AGM. It will be very brief, and it is a summary. It's not going through all the discussions that we have at the board, of which we have roughly 6 a year. The major thing this year, at the beginning of the year, was the new business plan that Emma and SMT, the senior management team, had put together. Obviously, that was blown wildly off course when COVID struck, and has been reviewed and resubmitted, and the board recently approved it. Once we reopened, which I must say a big thank you to the staff and the volunteers who helped us to do that very safely, the numbers of visitors that we've had have met our expectations, and the income that we've derived from catering and from the shop has met and exceeded some of our expectations. But of course there still is a big hole left from the fact that we had to be closed for a number of months, and this we won't make up, unfortunately. The other thing that on the board's been looking at is the diversification of the skills that we've got on the board. I'm hoping that over the next few months we will further increase the diversity of the board members, and we're looking at ways of improving the soft skills that we have, which is one of the areas that's been identified as lacking. We mentioned last year that we would proceed sometime this year with the extension, the ramp extension to the subway, and start on erecting the new visitor entrance building. That obviously was stopped by the COVID pandemic. The time was not wasted. We've looked at the whole process of capital development, and the board has agreed, and we now have in place a new process that ensures that all major projects on site that require external funding, be that wholly or in part, are managed in a professional way. That's only just happened, and it will take time to settle down, but our hope is that the work on the ramp could start towards the end of 2021. We're just about to sign what they call a BAPA with Network Rail, which is a basic asset protection agreement. We need to do that because the subway is actually owned by Network Rail, well, the section into our site is. And this will allow us to now get into detailed discussions with them and get them to approve the designs we've got for the subway extension and, in effect, the ramp, although that's not officially on their land. And that's about it, really. It's a very quick summary of what we discussed at the board. I think finally, just once again, I would like to say a big thank you to all the volunteers, all the paid staff, the people that were on furlough. Not a nice thing to do, but we had to do it, to save the finances for the business, and that allowed us to reopen successfully and very safely. Thank you for your time.
Hello everybody, and thank you Rich for the introduction. Before I start, just wanted to build on Rich's comment that we have a couple of members joining us from the Southern Hemisphere, and one of those is Angus Davis, who was one of the 4 founder members. So particularly special that Angus has been able to join us for the call today. So big welcome. Okay, so just before I begin my report, I want to pick up on something our chairman has just mentioned in his presentation, which is the Great Western Society's 5-year business plan. This plan will help us to build on the firm foundations of the past 60 years, and it will enable us to achieve the ambitions we have for the Society in the coming years. These ambitions embrace the pioneering spirit of innovation embodied by the Great Western Railway itself, and as we continue to grow as an internationally important and relevant heritage venue. We will be arranging an online meeting to share details from the business plan more widely, hopefully next month, and we'll be sending out some more information about this very soon. So this current year started off very positively. We had a busy February, followed by a successful March day out with Thomas, and we saw almost 4,000 visitors across the 2 days. Very soon after this, of course, the country went into national lockdown, and the railway centre was maintained by a minimal staff presence, mainly for security purposes. This was followed by on-site maintenance and lots of hard work from a number of teams. And this meant the site was prepared to the very best standards possible before we reopened to the public. The government's furlough subsidy has been a significant help to us as it enabled staff to be kept on and paid whilst the site was closed. We were also able to benefit from grant funding from a number of sources, totalling over £50,000, and support from our members towards both our emergency fund and in support of the overhaul of 1466, and this has totaled almost £30,000. So a huge thank you to all of our members for the generous support given during what has been a very challenging time for the Society and of course for all of us. Thankfully, we were able to reopen on the 4th of July and we reintroduced Steam Days from the 18th of July. Even with social distancing measures in place and having to limit ticket sales for the 3 days a week we have reopened, the summer's been a very successful time for us. We've seen excellent ticket sales throughout August and September, both of which have been an increase on the level seen in 2019. The gift shop and catering continue to perform well, despite the social distancing restrictions we've had to put in place. This has been helped by the healthy visitor numbers, but also by the hard work and creative input of staff and volunteers. You'll hear more about this during the visitor experience and marketing report. Following a busy, if condensed, summer, we're now looking ahead to autumn and of course to the festive season. We're unable to host Days Out with Thomas this year due to the significant upfront costs and the requirements for high capacity to ensure the event is financially viable. And we're actually really excited that we'll be delivering our own family Christmas days, and you'll hear more about these in more detail soon. Following a busy August and with a hopefully busy festive season to look forward to at the end of the year, we'll really have made the best of a very challenging year. And I just want to reiterate how valuable the support and understanding of you, the Great Western Society members and volunteers, has been. We're starting to look forward to the Great Western Society's 60th anniversary next year. 2021 will see the return of 1466 to Steam, so a huge thank you to all of you who have supported this fundraising appeal, and a programme of events and activities will also be put together to mark this milestone. You'll be receiving information on this soon to give you more information, but also to let you know how you can support and get involved. As Rich has also mentioned, our focus on capital development on site has been restarted with the improved entrance a priority. Developments to the site will ensure that the Society's nationally significant collection really is fully accessible and will engage an increasing number of visitors for generations to come. Okay, so we'll now move on to presentations from members of the senior management team. Whilst the videos are playing, if you have questions that come to you or there's something you want to raise, please do use the question function to type those questions to us, and we can pick those up at the end of the videos and raise those with the relevant members of the senior management team. So in the first 3 videos, we'll hear from Graham about changes made across visitor experience and marketing that have been really important in enabling our successful reopening following lockdown, but that will also add huge value in the long term. We'll then also hear from the Education Manager, Rod King, who will share the recent work of the education team and the excellent schools workshops that continue to engage pupils of all ages. Peter Jones will then provide an update from the Great Western Trust, including recent activity and how the Society and Trust are working together more closely than ever before. Enjoy the videos.
Good afternoon, I'm Graham Hewkins, Head of Visitor Experience and Marketing. I joined a little over a year ago with the remit to engage new audiences, increase visitor numbers and improve our events.
No sound. No sound.
Is it not playing?
It's not playing. It's not playing to this one.
Sorry about that. We seem to have a little glitch with one of our videos. We're just giving it another go.
Good afternoon, I'm Graham Hewkins, Head of Visitor Experience and Marketing. I joined a little over a year ago with the remit to engage new audiences, increase visitor numbers and improve our events, both in terms of quality and attendance. One of the reasons I was so excited back then was that I could see that Didcot has all the right ingredients and just needed some new recipes. In addition, Emma and the board were not only determined to grow the centre to ensure that we have a sustainable future, but had the ambition to make the centre a truly first-class living museum, and that was a project I wanted to be involved in. Of course, it's been a strange 12 months, and my role has expanded significantly as a result of coronavirus and lockdown, but we've made really good progress since last autumn. The first part of my time, which broadly corresponds with the tail end of the 2019-20 financial year, was dominated by Days Out with Thomas events. The first one was booked for just 3 weeks after I started, and reinforced my view that we have the potential to build on the foundation of recent years and drive the business forward. Accordingly, we made a few changes for the festive Days Out with Thomas, including switching Thomas himself to the main demonstration line and offering unlimited rides, a move which was extremely popular with visitors. This increased dwell time and perceived value, which in turn improved the secondary spend in the refreshment rooms and gift shop. Despite the enhancements, it was clear that Thomas and Santa were not natural bedfellows, and giving away a sizable chunk of income to the licence holder was unnecessary and, in the long term, unaffordable. While discussions with Hit Entertainment about a different format for this Christmas were not successful, they did agree to improvements we had suggested for our standard Day Out with Thomas events. So March saw Toad appear as a character for the first time, and the number of performances with engines and trucks was more than doubled to provide much better entertainment for visitors. And the simple expedient of providing a clear site map and programme of events proved very worthwhile. This was accompanied by a switch in our advertising from old-fashioned and relatively expensive newspaper and magazine adverts to a more cost-effective web and digital-based campaign, which helped deliver our busiest Day Out with Thomas event for 14 years. And then came lockdown. It was clear that digital communication would be key and the only real option while people were working from home if we were to engage audiences during lockdown. We quickly implemented the Going Loco and Tuesday Treasures blogs, which have proved extremely popular and continue to perform very well, even now that lockdown has been lifted. Enhancements to the website that had been started prior to the pandemic were accelerated to create a clearer, image-led site with intuitive navigation, concise messaging and a more attractive palette of vibrant heritage colours, replacing the downbeat browns and terracotta that had previously featured. We had started this approach with the publication of the annual leaflet back in December, keeping the distinctive shape of the masthead but introducing a range of classy colourways that can be implemented across traditional and digital media. The brochure was well received but unfortunately rendered obsolete by lockdown. While we were closed, we were determined that the work we did would stand us in good stead for the long term and put us in a better place when the centre was able to reopen. A great deal of time was spent scoping, researching and implementing a new integrated online booking and ticket office platform to replace the two separate systems we had previously used for the website and ticket office, neither of which were truly fit for purpose. This work bore fruit almost immediately, enabling us to pivot from a largely pay-on-the-day business model to a pre-booked one, which meant we were able to reopen on the 4th of July. The first day tourist attractions were again able to welcome visitors. Strengthening the visitor experience team with Chrissy Crisp adding some much needed administrative rigour also proved prescient. Reopening as a COVID secure venue was a huge team effort, and it was great to see the whole centre pulling together to work out how we could change our offer to keep customers and staff safe, and with many volunteers stepping outside their comfort zone to help look after visitors. I must also mention our period reenactors, who have mucked in to help out wherever they can. We will get back to arranging more training as soon as we can, ready for when we can resume more normal interaction with visitors. The new requirements meant that we had to reimagine our open days, initially without trains and then with just one on the main demonstration line. But we were more than able to compensate and provide an engaging and entertaining proposition for visitors, with real-life dioramas of goods trains, locomotives posed on the turntable and outside the engine shed. Again, an improved and simplified site guide helped visitors explore our 21-acre open-air living museum, and we managed to judge the public mood correctly, which has resulted in fantastic feedback as visitors leave the centre and on review sites online. The effectiveness of our image-led digital marketing was again demonstrated by encouraging visitor numbers, which saw August numbers rise by 21% on 2019, and a similar increase also achieved in September. Advertising and communication is only part of it. As I said, we have great ingredients, and 3 unique locomotives in the King, the Saint and the Steam Rail Motor have certainly given me plenty to work with this summer. We haven't been able to run events as such, and that will hit us through this autumn, particularly with the Days Out with Thomas cancelled. And we will not be able to recover the ground we lost by missing events planned for Easter, the bank holidays in May, and during the early summer. I mentioned earlier that my role had expanded during the year, as prior to reopening, in order to ensure a joined-up approach across the business, Emma asked me to take the gift shop and catering under my wing. The visitor experience team are also collaborating with the Great Western Trust to assist with museum stewarding and wider engagement with the collection, both by visitors on site and digitally. With the shop and catering, the priority has been to open consistently and safely to improve the quality of products and their presentation wherever possible. This approach, coupled with some better buying, particularly in the shop, has enabled us to improve margins. In catering, Ellen Hare and her small team have done a great job at adapting to a largely takeaway grab-and-go service. Recyclable disposables have been introduced where possible, labelling improved, and some local and regional products with good provenance added to the range. The somewhat random decor that adorned the walls has been replaced with classic posters from the Great Western Trust collection, and it's hoped to replace the furniture this winter. Museum posters also feature in a new range of shop products, which has been widened to appeal to a non-enthusiast as well as enthusiast market. Thomas Macy is helping to oversee the shop on a day-to-day basis as part of his new Visitor Services Supervisor role, and consistency has improved as a result. Some small improvements to layout and displays have been made, and again we hope to make more progress over the winter. As I said, it's been quite a year, but as we prepare to mark our 60th anniversary in 2021 and celebrate 6 decades of achievement, I'm really excited by the opportunities that will afford, particularly with 3 locomotives re-entering service next year: Pendennis Castle, Trojan, and the Society's first locomotive, 1466. I'm sure the locomotive team will have more to say about that very shortly, but in the meantime, there are plenty of challenges for me and the visitor experience team, starting with devising and delivering a safe, socially distanced but enjoyable series of Santa specials. Before I head off to work on that, a huge thank you to all of the staff, volunteers and members that have made me so welcome and helped me during my first year here at Didcot Railway Centre. And a special mention to Kevin Dare and Frank Doubleton for their help with this video.
He's just thanked you. Oh, that's nice of him.
Hello, I'm Rod Simpson, the manager of the education team here at Disco. Now, the mission of the education team is to take the wealth of historic Great Western materials here behind me and to make it informative, exciting and relevant to the next generation. So last year was a wonderful year, with so many children from so many schools visiting. We had a great year with school visits last year. Just look at these figures. And I'd like to thank Mike Hurst and all the volunteers for making this possible. This financial year started very well, with lots of children from lots of schools joining us here at Didcot for some exciting days out. But we fought back against the virus. But we haven't wasted those lost lockdown months. We've streamlined the process to make it easier for schools to visit us here at Didcot. We've made it easier for schools to explore what they can do here by updating the website. We've made it easier for schools to choose what they would like to do by introducing a pick and mix approach to our modules, and we've made it easier for schools to book by streamlining the whole booking process. We've emailed every school within a 50-mile radius to let them know that Didcot is open for visits. But I'm now delighted to announce a new secondary school initiative. Working closely with Reading Girls School, we're developing a series of workshops to encourage girls from an ethnically diverse background into science, technology, engineering and maths. And that's for the rest of the year. Bookings are starting to return, schools are starting to return, our volunteers are starting to return, and the education team here at Didcot can get back to doing what they do. Thank you. Introducing the next generation to the delights of railways. So a big thank you to all of you from the education team, from all our volunteers and helpers, and from me, Rod King.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I'm Peter Jones, member 1643, and I'm sitting here before you as chairman of the Great Western Trust. And it may come as something of a query and create a query in your mind as to what the Great Western Trust is. We are, in fact, one of the three trusts based at Didcot. We're all joined at the hip, in a sense. And our particular remit, since the 1980s really, is specifically to protect the small relics and the paperwork and the legacies that we've been given, covering the non-locomotive and rolling stock aspects of the railway. And of course, we're traditionally seen as the sleeping partner in the operation at Didcot because we're squirrels. Much of our more than 1 million small items are conserved and maintained by a small band of volunteers that have now got the museum building, of course, but our difficulty these days is, of course, that is not available for the general public. Over the years, we've been able to benefit from substantial gifts and bequests, notably the advertising and paperwork collection from R.K. Bird, the ticket collection that came from Charles Gordon Stewart, and most recently a significant cash endowment from Peter Gray, the well-known photographer and accomplished collector of all things Great Western. And so these 1 million plus objects, including tickets, luggage labels, ephemera, catering equipment and so on, we're only able really to show less than 5% of that in our collection. And this now, of course, is a key issue. What the Peter Gray bequest has enabled us to do is start thinking about how we can enter the modern world and bring this collection to the eyes of the public, largely through the opportunities presented by digital photography and digital capture. The exhibition hall will be the triumph, of course, for us, because then we will be able to bring this material to the eye of the public. But that, at the moment, looks as if it's many years distant. What we have to do is to create a framework whereby we are presenting digitally information to the public through our website, and then hopefully this will also enhance our ability to go out and bid for more monies from large charitable enterprises that are particularly keen now that we project our collection not just to our membership but to the wider British public. And we have committed £30,000 to this process. Initially, there are three elements to that. The first is the digitisation of the entire run of Great Western magazines from around about the 1880s. And this will enable all members to access, through keyword searches and key phrase searches, more importantly, any aspect of GWR operations. The second element will be more proactive in a sense. It will involve blogs, so-called talking heads of our trustees and dedicated volunteers, explaining how these objects have relevance not only to the Great Western history that we all so much love, but also to future generations who contemplate much the same issues in terms of industrial change and challenges in the transportation and wider industrial framework going forward in the next century. And the third element to this approach is, of course, there may be opportunities for commercial exploitation of these objects. Imagine having a tea towel personalised to you for your local station, with objects for tickets, luggage labels and so forth that you've accessed from our collection that you've been able to download. And this might have a tremendous appeal. And we're working with the Great Western Society to identify how we can jointly benefit from that opportunity. So Didcot is not just about the locomotives and the rolling stock. In that sense, we are much like many other preserved railways. What makes us different is that the efforts of past trust and indeed current trustees and volunteers has meant that we have now got accredited museum status. This is very important in the movement, and this third side of the triangle, our small artefacts and our relics material, the advertising and the ephemera of the railway, can really bring the Great Western to life beyond the mere running of trains, locomotives and rolling stock. And the way that I see this personally, and I've explained it in the past, is really to think about the activities of the Great Western in two axes. So on the vertical axes, we have the assets that they've got. There are only three assets available to any company. The first is kit, locomotives, equipment and so on. The second is money, and the third is labour. We tick the box on the kit. We don't have much money, but indeed what we're doing is actually identifying ways to take that forward. But it's the people aspect that the museum has an immense capability to explain to the current and future generations interested in the GWR. Across the bottom axis, there are three areas that drove the success of the Great Western Railway that we want to take out to the wider world. The first is that it was incredibly efficient. Through standardisation, through uniform policies, it drove efficiency far more than any other railway company, certainly, and indeed many other companies in the 20s and 30s especially. The second ingredient is its ability to operate within the legal framework of the day, and the third was its capacity for innovation. That innovation was tremendous. They weren't just a railway company, they diversified into trains, yes, but also boats and planes. And they diversified into road transport, into general transport, docks. We all know this. We've got to take this out now to the modern public. And that will give us an immense appeal to external funders to fulfill our aims in achieving the exhibition hall. So the trustees are currently going through the process of deciding how and what to prioritise in that process. And then, of course, the next question that begs is how we as a trust can work with the Great Western Society, because in a sense we are joined at the hip. We are two entities, both committed to the same area, and indeed we are now looking to see how, in the light of change compliance from the charity commissioners, we can both work together to deliver a model that will enable us to drive the society forward for the next 25 or indeed longer years. As an organisation, we have an ageing membership. We have increased pressure on our volunteers in terms of available numbers, and it is now beholden on us Many of us, the last people who can actually remember live steam on the railways of this country, to pull together now all these physical objects into a living story, and what's more, to make that living story accessible to all, to enable them to explore and to understand. And then, of course, from that hopefully will flow future commitment, more volunteers, and indeed cash to support us in our ever hungry needs to make sure that this collection is guaranteed in perpetuity, as indeed our past donors and those who gave us their bequests to drive this story forward wanted at the time of making that decision. So thank you for your support, and I hope that next time you go into the museum building, you'll have a broader understanding of not only what the Great Western Trust represents, but equally how we're seeking to tackle the challenges moving forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, so a big thank you to Graham, to Rod and to Peter for those videos, which were informative, engaging and entertaining at times as well. So they were brilliant. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who sent some questions in. We've got quite a few here, so I shall start working through these. We've got 10 minutes until the break, so we'll see how many we can cover. And if we are unable to cover your question, there's an opportunity later also, and then we can answer some questions after the meeting as well. So the first question has come in from Mick Jarvis, member number 5851. And Mick has asked a question to our chairman, Richard Preston, which is asking about the structure in terms of our board members and our staff, and actually can we publish this in the Echo, and can we make this more accessible and be more open about the structure of our staff and our board?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay, Mick, your question. The structure, the management structure, is a bit of a moving feast and has been. It's just been agreed on the new structure as part of the new business plan. I think what the plan is for after the November SMT meeting is that Emma will publish in the Echo and various other places the outline of the business plan, what the aims are, what the management structure is that will support that plan, and what the reporting silos, if for want of a better term, are. So I hope that answers your question. Look out for more information in November, and that should let you know exactly what's going on with the management structure. I hope that's answered the question.
Yes, it has partially, Richard. It's just I'm concerned it's taken so long, and that what's happening.
Yeah,
I'll refer back to what I remarked earlier.
I mean, part of this you have to remember, everybody does, that we're in the middle of a pandemic as well. So a lot of management time has been taken up on managing that, and also trying to do all these other things at the same time. So
I appreciate that, Richard, but you must remember that the questions originated way before that time, soon after the new, go back now, I'll go back 9 months or so.
Yeah, but as I said, the structure has now been agreed. It has changed a couple of times because of changes in the business plan and lessons we've learnt during COVID, to be honest. So like I said, all I can say really is, watch the space, look out for November, and a lot more information will be available. And things could change again in a year's time. The management structure is not going to be something that's set in concrete. It's got to meet the changing circumstances of both us as a society and organisation and the world outside. Okay?
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Rich, and thank you for your question, Mick. So moving on to the next question we've had in. This is a question about visitor experience and marketing, or putting a question to visitor experience and marketing, which is from Chris Penny. And the question is, why on the back page of the DRC publicity leaflet can't we have the back page as a membership form for joining the GWS? So if I put that to Graham to respond to that question, please.
Chris, thank you for your question. We went this year from a 6-page booklet or leaflet last year to a 16-page booklet for the publicity for the main brochure for the season, and there is only so much space and so much print that we can do. To add the membership information in there, and a membership form would have probably added another 3 or 4 pages. We've got a separate membership form at the moment. More importantly though, what we have done in regards to membership is actually put membership big and bold. It's now got its own box on the front page of the website. We've taken the opportunity to make membership available online, so new members can buy online, and gradually we'll move the rest of the membership to a digital platform as well. And just by utilising the new system since July, we've had over 75 new members that have joined online this year, which is again a marked increase on what we've had before. So you're absolutely right. Take away the hurdles, make it really simple. It's the same with all of the experiences and the products that we're selling. Get people interested and move them as quickly as we can to the sale. Increasingly, we're doing that digitally rather than with traditional media, and that's serving us very well.
Can I
Great.
just ask Graham, I haven't seen the 16-page leaflet you mentioned, so I'm not aware of that, but presumably it's downloadable online.
It is
And
downloadable online.
If you just studied a 17th page for the online one, would that be a problem?
Online, to be honest, it is available to download online, but actually online downloadable forms are quite an old style technology and not the best way to go. It's literally one click from the home page gets you to the membership information, and another click gets you to the page where you need to buy and pay for your membership, and that is a lot more of a streamlined process than downloading the membership form, filling it in, writing out a check, and going to the post box to get it back to the society. So increasingly, as I say, digital is the way to go, and it's going. And COVID has definitely accelerated that. 99% of our bookings are now online. Last year we were about 10%. So it's the way it's moving.
Brilliant. Thank you for your question, Chris, and thank you for such a kind of in-depth answer, Graham. I think that's covered off all sides of that, so thank you. So we have another question from Chris Penny, and this is for our chairman, for Richard Preston, which asks, having made a donation to Pendennis Castle and hearing that she'll not be mainline running, Chris says that members were not consulted on this decision to his knowledge, and when will this decision be reviewed?
Okay, yeah, thanks for the question. The decision to cease mainline running was not an easy one to make, particularly for me. I'm one of the youngsters who worked on the first loco to get out there and did all the work, etc., to get mainline running. The world of mainline running now is totally different. It's not just the cost of all the electronics you have to fit on the thing. All locos running on the main line now have to be maintained by what they call an ECM, an entity in charge of maintenance. We've had to become one of those for our wagons to go backwards and forwards to the West Yard. Fairly simple, but it involved a lot of paperwork. It is quite bureaucratic, and it is something we get audited against every year. And if we don't maintain that certification, we're not allowed to move the wagons. Now, you can imagine when you apply that to a steam loco that's out there doing 75 miles an hour, hauling 300 or 400 tonnes and doing thousands of miles a year, the systems you have to have in place are much, much more onerous. And that was one of the final things really that swayed us against it, because the amount of management time that would be absorbed in doing all that, and also the amount of time for the volunteers' point of view, was out of all relationship to the benefits. I mean, if you look at locos running on the main line now, I think the only one that's privately owned is Clanline, and all the rest are owned by very rich people or commercial organisations. So it wasn't an easy decision to take. I can't see, if I'm being honest, it being reviewed, because the world of mainline running will only get even tighter. We had Sir Peter Henny, I've forgotten his name now. Pendy, sorry, yeah, on site. Sorry about that, fellas. And we were talked to him about the mainline running, and he felt the same. You'd have 2 or 3 organisations running mainline steam, mainline diesels, heritage, and that would be it, because there just wouldn't be a place for all the other small players. So might not be what you want to hear, Chris, but that's the real world. As to consulting members, yes, okay, perhaps we could have gone out and consulted with everybody. I don't think it would have changed the actual answer, because, like I said, it just is too onerous now.
Great. Thank you for your question, and thank you for that response, Rich. We've had a few more questions in, some of which I think it will be more straightforward to answer via the website, and we can send you answers to those, and a couple of others that we'll actually move to a second part of the session because they're relevant to the videos we'll be reviewing after we've taken our break, because we've now finished, we've come to the end of the first section of the informal meeting of members, and we're going to take a short break. Hello. Welcome back to our meeting of members, and thank you for all the questions. They've been absolutely flooding in, so we've been trying to answer them, the ones that we can, directly via the question and answer function, and there'll also be time following the next set of videos for your questions to be answered, because some of them are about locomotives and other areas that will be covered in the upcoming videos. So in terms of our second instalment of updates from a senior management team, we'll hear from Richard Antliff on the busy world of civil engineering and what everybody in that team has been getting up to. Zepp, Lee and a number of others from the operations and loco departments. And finally, Mick Howes on work carried out by the carriage and wagon team and also plans for future activity. So as before, while the videos are playing, please do type in any questions you have and we'll do our best to answer those once the videos are finished. Okay, over to the videos.
Hello, my name's Richard Antliff. I'm Civil Engineering Manager at Didcot Railway Centre, a volunteer and I've been involved for many years. I hope you like what you've seen around the centre this year. I can't judge, as there's no audience now, your live audience. I can't judge as to whether you like what I'm saying, but as I say, I hope you like what you've seen around the centre over this last year. We've had a lot of people working on things around the centre. We've got several groups, which I'll just mention. The first group, perhaps to mention, is the Tuesday Heavy Construction Gang. They've been working away, usually with concrete. They've been working away, for example, on the path across the front of the carriage shed, and they've been working on the flooring inside the carriage shed, now completed across to include number 7 line. So we now at last have a full hard floor across the whole of the front of the carriage shed, very useful for future occasions. When they finish that work, which is imminent, they'll be moving down to the back of the carriage shed on number 1 line to help erect and floor the wagon shop. That should have been built last year, but our steelwork contractor had some difficulties, and we've only just received the materials for the structure. Another group that we have in is called the Tuesday Group. This is to make sure they don't get confused with the Tuesday Gang. The Tuesday Group are people who paint. Just behind me you can see the museum porch, which they've only just painted in all the right Great Western colours. And they've got a huge programme of buildings to paint all around the site, signs and lamps and all sorts of other Great Western features. There's lots of work to do there. They're supported, and in fact they're probably led by the Holt Gang, who paint the Didcot Hole, the go fencing and everything. And of course the Bristol group on the signal and telegraph work, keeping all of our features to do with the signalling system in good order, including the signal boxes. Another group that's growing is our landscape group. As someone remarked, site didn't stop growing during the during the virus pandemic, and during the lockdown in the summer. We now have a growing group there of people who are into lawn mowing. We've just bought a new sit-on proper agricultural, horticultural tractor, and it does a really good job on the site. And we've got a trees maintenance program to do over the winter, so if you want to join that sort of thing, please come along. It's all good fun. Other groups, we've got general works on the site. Barrow crossings, to Great Western pattern, have been renewed in a number of places. What substantial structures they are. Not as substantial as structures are the doors of the engine shed, which at last we now have most of them refitted. Each one of those is a project in its own right, but the engine shed's looking a lot more like a conserved and cared for building as a result. And we've even got some doors on the Wantage Road Motor Garage, thanks to a special effort. A special effort ought to be acknowledged in terms of our electricians. Most of their work is completely hidden. We only know about it when things aren't working. When it's working, we all take it for granted. Huge amount of rewiring work done on the engine shed. There's work going on in all sorts of other places around the site. And they also look after all our electrical tools and check everything. That's checking the electrical terms. I suppose the last group I ought to mention is the group that I coordinate as a volunteer, our weekend civil engineering team. We intend to build historic buildings as best we can. At the moment, we're focused on the Great Western Railway concrete, pre-constructed concrete building, but prefabricated, which was given to us by Oxford County Council a few years ago when the front of the Didcot Parkway station was remodelled and car parks built. We've nearly finished that. Half of it's going to be used as a site workshop, so that should enable several of the site groups to improve the enjoyment of their output, if I can put it that way. And the other half will be used as a staff room, really for traffic department staff and anybody else who hasn't got a home on site. That will be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Nice, warm, comfortable, clean room. I'm starting to call it the lounge to distinguish it from other places around the site. So we've nearly finished that. Will it be finished by Christmas? Well, that's always the question, isn't it? But I hope it will be opening soon. The other thing I want to mention, and this is probably much more significant really, because our ongoing work is the work the engineering department does to design, to think through and design all the big projects for the long term. We have a master plan which we drew together a year or so ago of all the projects that we've been thinking about over the last 20 or 30 years. We've already delivered some of them, if you can put it that way, in that we've built the museum annex, we've built the signaling centre, we've built the Wantage Road Garage and the concrete building, quite small, modest buildings, but very interesting conservation projects and conservations we're interested in. We're now going to embark on building the Hayford station building, dismantled many years ago, but there's a lot of support for doing it. It will be a very enjoyable project. It will take us a while to do it properly, but we're going to do it really well so that it's a really attractive feature of the site and usable commercially as well, because we'll be able to do all sorts of things down at the station when we've got a proper station. In other words, a slightly more modern, a more substantial looking station than the others that we've got around the site at the moment. Other projects that we have in mind, and we've got a calendar, but not nearly enough, are, for example, the visitor entrance building, which you've read about in the Echo. We want to build the ramp. We've always wanted to build the ramp, but it's going to take a lot of effort to do it. And other projects, we want to extend the portal frame buildings, the locomotive works and the carriage shed, so that more of our wonderful collection of engines and carriages can be displayed well, or at least kept under cover, and we draw them out to display when we want to. We also, of course, need to put a lot of effort into conserving and caring for the engine shed and the coal stage, both of which, as you know, probably are listed buildings. The transfer shed is in the same category. That's not so bad, but they all need care and attention. We've been working away on these, and we constantly prioritise, but they will need a lot of money to build. One of the problems we've encountered, and we constantly encounter it, is that, quite frankly, there aren't many grant bodies out there that are willing to give us, or able indeed, to give us the sort of money that we need for these projects. Most of the money we need for these projects probably will come from, I suggest, and maybe my opinion maybe, come from donations from you, the membership, and other people who wish as well. And to be quite honest, maybe some of the bigger projects won't be achieved without legacies. So there's something to consider being generous about if you like that what we have been, if other people like what we're doing at Didcot and what we have done for the long term. Many people have put much effort into the society and developing Didcot since we first came here in the 1960s. a huge amount has been done. People who visit, who don't come very frequently, for example, if they've come from another country, Australia, for example, they say, gosh, so much has changed and it's all done so well, which is very nice to hear. We're putting a huge amount of effort in at the moment, and we plan to continue to, as I've explained, with some of the projects that are in the master plan, and you might have spotted some of them if you've seen a copy of the plan, or you can see one now. We've moved so far over the years. We think we've done well. We're very enthusiastic. We want to keep doing it. Please come and support, and please enjoy, what we have created. Come and join us if you like. So I suppose for me, it's a question of getting my overalls back on and getting back to work. I think a lot of people would say I ought to be doing that. Thank you.
Railroads number 93 has been in service now for 10 years, and unfortunately the boiler ticket is about to expire. The mechanics and the boiler of it are excellent and will last again, but unfortunately the bodywork isn't quite so good, so we may be a little while before we see it back in traffic. The Society does many filmings. In the current year, obviously because of the COVID, we haven't had so many. But the end of last year, we filmed a film called Lewis Wayne, or the history of Lewis Wayne, who was an artist from the Victorian era who did pictures of humans with animal heads, cats to be precise. So that stars Benedict Cumberbatch and should be released hopefully by Christmas. We have just finished filming for The Most Reluctant Convert, which is some filming about C.S. Lewis, thank you, Lee. C.S. Lewis. I knew I brought him along for a reason. Yeah. And he's about his early history and about during the First World War. It's probably going to be a television production and will appear maybe later in the year towards the beginning of next year. 29.99 Lady of Legend has given sterling service this year and has been very much the star of the show, running up and down with the vintage coaches. We were going to send it on loan to the Severn Valley and North Yorkshire Moors to let it stretch its legs. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened, but you never know, next year maybe we'll send it out. 6023 King Edward II. Unfortunately, we threw the fire out 2 weeks ago and that's it. It did marvellously last year. It went to Gloucester and Warwickshire, North Yorkshire Moors, star of the show at the North Yorkshire Moors, upstaged all the other engines, even including their own 9F, which was brand new. Unfortunately, it's now not out of service. It is out of service, rather. Yeah. And a young gentleman up there will tell us what's going to happen next.
We will keep it in one piece for the Society's anniversary year next year, and then we will look about returning it to service again.
I know it's not 4144, it's 6106, but it seemed like an apt place to talk about it. Last year it spent all year on the Severn Valley running, very popular there, earned us quite a bit of money. This year it was going to go, or has gone, to the Keating and Worth Valley and was going to run on the Kent and East Sussex all summer. They haven't run trains, but it now may be running, so it may be worth looking out to see if you can get a trip on it. It will return to us and should be here around Christmas.
Okay, so this is the boiler for Solar Railways number 1. We're just getting it ready for the hydraulic phase, hopefully to enter service at some point next year. So here we have 1363, and despite claims of previous AGMs that no one's interested in this locomotive, there's several bits of progress which Ali will explain.
Okay. What have you done? Well, we've made a new running plate for the back end to go with the new frame section that we've replaced on the back. The floor has been manufactured here. The springs are all on. The motion has been overhauled with all new bearings. The valve gear has been rebuilt. We're about to put that back in. The cylinders have been apart. We've checked the pistons. We've put new rings in. We have checked the valves, they're all good. and the cladding is also being done by volunteers. So, yeah, the progress is occurring. We're gradually painting things and getting things up to a point that when the boiler is being worked on, it should be relatively fast to put it in and get the engine going.
Good afternoon. We're here with 1014 County of Glamorgan. The successes this year. We have the wheels fitted, we have the cab fitted, we have the saddle and the smoke box fitted. The connecting and coupling rods are more or less complete. The bushes will be finished this year. So by the end of the year, we should be able to fit the connecting and coupling rods, and you will have what will be seen to be a rolling chassis. Next year's target will be all the inside motion completed. The boiler hopefully will be completed by the end of next year. So early spring 2021, we should see a rolling chassis with the cab, the smoke box, the boiler, and also the tender tank should be well on its way to being completed.
There we are by 7202, where work continues. As you can see, most of it is on the boiler.
This is 3650, this is a boiler, and the frames you can see behind me. It's the only engine here at the railway centre that is totally 100% privately owned, and the problem we've got at the moment is we're having to work at the rate of what the society can afford, because in its first steaming all the funds actually went straight into the society, not to the engine. And of course it's been a tough year, so funds are a bit tight, so we can only work at the rate, as I say, that the society can afford. We're currently opening up the boiler now. We've had it all examined, NDT'd, and all the various bits and pieces have been shown to the inspector, and we've formulated a plan. And as you can see, we're gradually opening it up. Once we've done all of that, we've then got to work on the frames and actually get the wheels out and get the tyres changed due to some of the issues we had with the branch curve on its first steaming. And really, that's about it. As I say, we're a little bit hamstrung by finances, but we just progress as and when we can.
The overhaul of the Society's original locomotive, 1466, is progressing well. The work is being done by Western Steam Engineering, who are based in the Forest of Dean. Although the virus has delayed progress, the engine is still planned for completion for the Society's anniversary next year. It will be finished in its original preservation livery of green with Great Western Info on the tanks. The footage you see was taken a couple of weeks ago and can show the state of progress so far. "1340 Trojan is nearing completion of a protracted overhaul at the locomotive services of Loughborough. The insurer's steam exam has been carried out successfully, with a full working steam test in the next few weeks, with a return to Didcot not long after.
Here we have the boiler of Pendennis Castle. It's passed its hydraulic exam with the insurance company, and we're just getting ready for the steam test.
Okay. Yeah. Oh. You can see I'm not big today.
Okay, so as you can now see, Pendennis Castle has the first fire it's had in it in the UK since 1977.
Well, the carriage and wagon report from the last year
has really meant that although we had plans in place for the whole year, the COVID has in effect put us on hold for at least 3 months, and therefore we are having to rehash exactly what we were planning on and where we are. In terms of detail on that, the original idea was to have Auto Trader 231 ready for the 60th anniversary, and at the moment that's still on track, although we were going to signwrite that in July, and obviously that couldn't happen. So hopefully by the time you see this on your AGM, that will now be lined out and lettered by our signwriter. Unfortunately, 9113 Prince of Wales, which was due to be done at the same time, has had to be suspended because we simply haven't got the workshop space to accommodate it with all the restrictions that we've had to put in place for the social distancing for visitors. So the main focus of attention at the moment, as far as the midweek paid staff are concerned, is 290. 290 is supported by the Victorian Carriage Fund, which you, the members, have been very generous in your support, and I hope it continues that way. Where we are at the moment is that one side has got all the doors now fitted, internal panelling is done, most of the external moulding is done, and they're now working up on both ends, after which we should be in a position to turn it and look at putting the roof on. Another beneficiary of the lockdown, believe it or not, has been 1184. Now 1184 is a Collet luggage van which was started many years ago by our TPO group. It's sat in the back of the carriage shed here, and it's been on a tick over for ages and ages and ages. Because it's located out of the way of the visitors, it's something we've been able to focus on. Although I have to say, there is no budget for it. But that's no fault of the society, it's purely because when we set the budgets last year, we were not looking at doing that carriage. We are very fortunate in that we reached the stage whereby we need to put a new roof on it. And as the existing one was scrapped, Antiquary have very, very generously funded that. So there is no impact on the society's budget. Indeed, one of the things that we've looked at doing is trying to reduce any impact on the budget because we simply are not getting the visitor numbers in. So in terms of the normal running sets, I have to say that the Victorian set, which has been used throughout most of the summer along with 3755, has gone down a storm with visitors. They really appreciated the fact that engineering wise, we've all managed to pull together, both loco operations and ourselves, to be able to put out a train that we can socially distance in and keep the family groups together in compartments. Unfortunately, the knock-on effect of the lockdown also has been that 2 coaches that really should be coming into traffic now, 7371 and 7372, are going to be delayed. 7371 should have re-entered service just after Easter for a 70th birthday, but naturally that was cancelled, and we simply are not in a position to get that into traffic yet. 7372 similarly should have been up on the lift jacks by now to have a mechanical overhaul, but that's not been possible. So they're jobs that we will have to catch up with next year. I have to give great credit and praise to all the carriage and wagon staff, both volunteers and paid, for their outstanding work over the years, and in particular the last few months with all the difficulties. I think it's something that all the members can be internally grateful for, because without their help we simply wouldn't have the collection of coaches available that we have today. I must also put on record my great thanks to Chris Herridge in particular from the 231 Club. Chris, I know, is looking at standing down, and we do have somebody in the wings that's hopefully going to take over. It's fundamentally important that the 231 Club are kept independent so that we have the additional funding available to us. Sadly this year it's not been possible to open Antiquary, and we again are very reliant on their support. That will have a knock-on effect next year, because if they can't make any money this year, funds will be restricted next. So to everybody out there, can I just plead that you do look at supporting our funds. We have restricted funds for the Super Saloon, we have restricted funds for the Victorian Carriage Fund, And all being well, an important announcement may be made next year that we're looking towards doing the Dreadnought. The Dreadnought has for many years been subject to members asking, when are you going to restore it? And the truth is that with the skills that we've got now and the workforce we have now, if we don't look at doing it shortly, I'm afraid it's not going to be done for many, many years. The idea is that we will create an Edwardian carriage fund so that any excess money can go towards doing the top lights to create a nice train of the period from round about the First World War. This hopefully will be faced up by Richard Croucher, who has a track record in this sort of thing, and I hope that you will be able to support it at the appropriate time. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your continuing support.
Okay, brilliant. So a huge thank you there, of course, to Richard Antliff, to Zepp and Lee, and all their guests, because that was quite a full video, which was lots of fun, and also to Mick Howes for the update from Carriage and Wagon. So we've had quite a few questions come in. We've tried to answer lots of them in text, and you can actually see the answered questions if you're interested within the question and answer box. In terms of the ones that we will answer live now, so the first one is a quick one, which I'll answer from Brian Hardwick, member number 6279. And Brian's asking, did the Great Western Society apply for a share of the Heritage Culture Recovery Fund, which is the Arts Council Fund? And the answer is yes, we did, but we applied in the second stage of the grant of the application process, which means we haven't heard yet. So you will all have seen published a vast number of heritage railways who have received significant amounts of funding from this fund, and we have to wait another couple of weeks until we get our response. So hopefully we'll have good news to share with you on that one. So thank you for that, Brian. And another question we've had from Paul Harley, which is regarding sharing minutes of meetings. And I'll paraphrase because it's quite a long question from Paul. But Paul asks, Paul mentions that we've seen as a membership minutes from the senior management team meetings, but actually doesn't feel that the membership has received minutes of the board meetings for a long time. And just to say quickly on that, there was an abridged set of minutes that went out in a Didcot flyer fairly recently. So you may have missed that one, Paul. But it is something we're working on. And we're really trying to strike that balance at the moment in terms of being open and transparent, as Anne said in her re-election video, balanced alongside actually not overwhelming members, and especially new members who may have joined us for slightly different reasons, with a huge volume of information. And I don't know if Richard wanted to say something on that as well.
No, just to say it is something we continuously look at, and the board has discussed it on quite a number of occasions. And as Emma said, it is trying to get this happy medium. There are various items we discussed that can't be publicised. Most can, but most of it is very dry. And in fact, we had a meeting this week, John, the Deputy Chairman, and Tony Keys, which was looking at exactly what the board needs to look at, what type of information it needs to look at, what reports it needs, etc., and perhaps a new form of minutes. So yeah, once again, yeah, things are developing, and we will try to keep everybody informed as best we can.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rich. That's really helpful. So in terms of questions, I think that's it. We've answered some privately. Some others are going to be passed on to other members of staff who are more appropriate, or other members of the board or volunteers who are more appropriate to answer those questions. And you'll receive responses to those outside of the meeting. So we are coming up to 4:15. And unless there are any burning questions that you've not yet managed to ask. No, there's nothing else coming in. So all that's left really is to say a huge thank you to everyone who's joined us, to all of our members who have made the time to be part of the meeting, and of course to everybody who's contributed in terms of the videos, and those members of staff and volunteers and board members who have spent huge amounts of time either videoing for the contributions or editing. So a big thank you to Rosie for that, because I know Rosie spent a huge amount of time working on that in terms of editing the videos for today and making sure that's all set up. And just finally to say that we are recording the session today, and we will be making that live online. we're making it accessible online so that you can access it after the meeting. So a big thank you.
And also, yes, a big thank you from me to all of you. So that's the end of the informal AGM and the informal AGM. So perhaps next year don't quite know what form it's going to take. It might be a bit of a formal one and also remote, but we'll have to see how things pan out over the next few months. Thank you very much for your time.